Greetings, my name is Taffany Davis. I am actually one of the counselors here at Mission High. And I know you said you didn't want to hear about actual instances, but I think you need to understand the instances that have created what you're seeing here. So quickly, I usually do not, I do everything to support my kids, so I usually stand in the background and let them do the talking. But it comes to a point where my students come to me and talk about their run-ins with the police, and unfortunately, they are usually negative. Now, I don't believe that all police officers are inherently out to get or to oppress people, although it ends up more often than not to do exactly that. Instead of seeing every individual that shuns contact with you, run, or seems nervous as a suspect, take a second to comprehend that their reaction has been inbred by previous interactions, and that your uniform and badge signify they're not safe. Last week, students felt defenseless when officers did not follow procedures and came into the school and began to accost students that fit the description, without checking in at the office or speaking with any adult. As brazen as this situation was, it was not rectified in a manner that has put my students nor myself at ease. As long as I can remember, I tried to instill in these students right and wrong and how to handle themselves when dealing with the police. It makes it extremely difficult to have them trust me or feel safe in a place which they should, in school. The psychological scars that are continually placed upon our communities need more than a Band-Aid, which these meetings are. We need you to hear us, and when it comes to creating resolutions, bring the community to the table. You cannot do this without us. Lastly, I must state that the actions of some have tainted the image of SFPD. They must be held accountable before any trust can ever be reinstilled in those that have sworn to protect and serve. Thank you.
Bravo! Thank you for those comments. I think it is important to us. It's not on. It is important that your voice about wanting to be re-engaged and heard in this is heard by us, and that we owe it to you to prove to you that we will come back. And the next step of coming back is, after we finish the listening sessions, is coming back to you and talking about the goals that will be set forth in the assessment, so you can see that your voices were heard. And then the step after that will be coming back and telling you about the findings and recommendations and what are the path forward from there. So we will continue to engage in that way, and I believe you're correct, and we have an obligation to do that. Sir?
Yes, hello. My name is Jason Garza, and I'm here to speak about this entire farce. This community organizing thing is nothing but a farce. The Department of Justice should send out the Civil Rights Division. I speak from personal experience. If you go to YouTube and look under Jason Garza, you'll see over 1,000 videos of me fighting for my medical rights here in San Francisco. The San Francisco Police Department does not enforce medical law. So if these people can't get their health care enforced by the police department, they're going to end up on the street to get shot, which is what's happening. As far as the CIT officer, I've been the CIT officer at the San Francisco Police Department and have videos to show what a farce that is and the lack of proper following up, the proper accountability. I've gone to the Board of Supervisors over Laura's Law for the mentally ill people so that I can show them my videos. That's never been responded to because naturally this is all a game. This is all an illusion. There will be nothing more than the process of risk management here, which is the 3 Ds. Deflect, defer, deny. Oh, we'll come back in 18 months to see if it's working. Unnecessary. If you want to hold them accountable now, not for some promise in the future. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I want to pick up where he left off at. What we want is accountability, okay? Our communities, not only in San Francisco, but throughout the United States, are more than fed up by means of watching cops use excessive force, shooting and killing not only blacks, but Hispanics and even in some cases, whites are being killed by cops. Okay? Children as well. Okay? And every time that there's a murder by a cop, first report that we get from the police department is the person that was killed lunged at the police. Then when they're unaware that they've been recorded, and you look at the recordings, you see that the person did not lunge at the police. That's a bold-faced pathological lie, and it happens every time that somebody's murdered by a cop.
And they criminalize the victim.
Now, this situation with Mario Woods, before that video came out, those cops were saying that Mario Woods lunged at the police with a small knife. When the video came out, we saw that the cop lunged in front of him, okay? Restrict his movement and open fire. That was a firing squad. There's no excuse for that. It's called excessive force. That was an actual murder. And about this newspaper report talking about the San Francisco police, it's got diversity because there was not only white cops that were shooting and murdered that black. That's proof that you don't have to be a white person to commit murder. You just complete and further bolster my theory that because of your training and because you're on the same payroll, you join in on a practice that's discriminatory and you're doing the same type of performance because you're on the same payroll and getting the same type of benefits. So all that does is prove that even though you're a minority and you work for the police department, and if somebody that's white and starts it off, you're going to join in. And that assassination of Mario Woods, having several cops unload on him like that, empty their pistols out, is disgusting. That was a firing squad. That was not justice. You violated his constitutional rights. Now, for you to come here from the Justice Department, our community wants you to report to the Civil Division of the Justice Department and the Criminal Division of the Justice Department. Because we're not here to train police. That's not our job. You're supposed to get trained before you come into our communities. And for you to come out here and say, what can we do to better train the cops? Every time you do a fuck up and murder somebody, first thing you want to say, we need better training. You don't need no goddamn better training. You're supposed to be trained before you come out. Now, we already got laws on the books. We already got federal laws on the books to protect citizens in our community. Now, that was a criminal act. That was murder. Okay? So, there's this criminal law that your Justice Department should be aware of. And I want you to get this information to the Attorney General Loretta Lynch. There's this law that's called Title 18 of the United States of America's Code Service. The U.S. Attorney General's and the Lawyers Edition. Act 241, 242, 245, and 246. All in detail, which reads in part as follows. 241. If two or more persons commits or injures or oppresses, threatens, intimidates any person in the state territory of the Commonwealth, possession and district or exposure, and denies employment, and Mr. Mario Woods had a job waiting on him. He's supposed to start working at the United Parcel Service. The day he got killed, that following day, was supposed to be his first day of work. So you deprived him of his constitutional rights pertaining to the 14th Amendment, due process, and equal protection under the law. So you're eligible to have this criminal law applied to you, and you murdered that kid. Okay? Okay, so any type of behavior that's in violation of this Title 18, Act 241, person shall not be fined not more than $10,000 cash money and shall not serve a prison term in a federal penitentiary for a time period no longer than several years. that should be applied to each and every one of those cops that murdered that kid out of the Bayview district.
Prosecute.
So my time is up, and I want to tell you about the
Mario Woods! Justice for Mario Woods!
Thank you.
Justice for Mario Woods! Justice for Mario Woods! Justice for Mario Woods! Justice for Mario Woods!
Just this is what he's going to get. Just this is what he's going to get. Just this is what he's going to get.
Not if we can help.
Okay, what I want to say is
I hope,
that
I hope with you,
I hope,
Jason
I
Garza.
hope that the meetings that go forward, that you do the right thing. So let me explain to you, as the gentleman told me, to explain about cultural competency. You all went to the Bayview and you screwed up big time. No outreach. So over here you come and you say a word, so that the computer catches the word, and then you do your Mickey Mouse on the screen. This is the Department of Justice. I hope it is not the Department of Jokers. Do not come into our community and patronize. What is cultural competence? Do you understand what it is to be an indigenous person? As a white person, can you in any way feel emotionally for a black person? You throw words on your presentation about policing. This is the police, law enforcement. Then you throw words about the community. Do you know for the last 20 years, we have a document in detail about community policing? The Department of Justice better understand that you cannot come to San Francisco and treat us like kids. We ain't going to take it.
Here, here.
We ain't going to take it.
Here, here.
I was at the Board of Supervisors today, and I told them exactly this. Our supervisors thought by bringing the Department of Justice and by approaching the Attorney General, Lynch, that they would be getting justice. What are you telling us? That wait for 24 months and we'll figure out something about nothing. We ain't going to take this crap anymore. Cultural competency, when you look at the people here, people of color, they like to express their feelings. Not a word here, a word there, throwing arrows in the air that may fall on your head, that may fall on your head, that may make you understand what the people are feeling about. The people are riled out. They are very angry. In our courts, yesterday, we had attorneys, city attorneys, badgering the mother of Alex Mayer.
Of course.
Badgering, having no compassion, no feeling, no nothing. If you're a human being, the first thing you have to learn is compassion. This is the city of San Francis Assisi, who had compassion. You may go to some other city and try your one word here, one word there, one word something, Mickey Mouse. It ain't going to work here in San Francisco. It ain't going to work here in San Francisco. Now you may say, who's this guy? I work for the United States Park Police. And I studied most everything that is required to be studied to understand the mentality of those who do things because they are conditioned to do things. So don't you think that you can come here and say, just like that, you can change the mentality of some rogue police officer. You cannot. Now, I am not stating, I'm not stupid to state that all the policemen are rogue policemen, but the ones that are the rogues, what we call rednecks, that have no mercy, they treat people like animals. And when you get people who treat others like animals, the only way you can fix that is by giving them a complete blood transfusion or a brain transplant, which you are not capable of doing. Which you are not capable of doing. So, cultural competency. Understand about the people's culture. Number two, have compassion. If you have no compassion, go to hell with a coconut shell.
Fire chief, sir! 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 Fire chief, sir!
Whoever was answering emails to questions, I appreciate your response. After 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, when you had this panel over the baby, I got really curious as to what your outreach flyer was saying, because it was obvious that it did not go out to that community.
That's right.
I received this beautiful flyer, and I was really dismayed when I read it, because it does not get to the heart of what young people were looking for and the changes that it needs. I was further dismayed when I discovered that there is no flyer in Spanish for this community to bring people in. Okay. This makes me raise the questions about what you mean by community. It's not the same thing as how I would define community. And it also makes me wonder about the relevance of this panel's findings in San Francisco and in other places that you have been to. Okay, my second comment is I attended the Blue Ribbon panel on February 22nd, where Chief Sir and the DA Gascon, said a word question. When Chief Sir was questioned, he stated at one point the qualifications to become a member of the police department have been changed so that with current qualifications, some police officers that are on the force now may not qualify to be part of that department. One concern that really triggered red flags to me is, what about these officers? No matter what reforms or policy changes there are, some of them will not change their culture or their behavior. And we're still seeing this now. With all the fire that the San Francisco Police Department is going through now, I've seen violence, and even within the last couple of weeks, that the police department is doing to people, and people of color. Just the other week, I was visiting a friend in the Western Addition, and across the street came two police officers with two black men sitting in the car. They got two black men out of the car, and right away, they put their hands over their head. Well, as it turned out, another cop car came, but nothing happened. And the woman that I was visiting said, "That's my daughter's boyfriend, and he has a disability. He has cerebral palsy." So the people with disabilities, whether it's physical or emotional, are really targeted in this society. From what I have seen and heard in the community since your last gathering, the gap is widening between the community and the police. And 18 months is too long to wait for your recommendations. Some things need to be done immediately, and one thing is firing Chief Sir. There is no trust of the police. For people to begin to have healing and to begin to have trust, there has to be accountability, and there needs to be some immediate results.
Bravo!
Justice for Mario Woods Coalition. What do we want? What do we demand? What do we demand? Justice for Mario Woods Coalition. What do we demand? What is our second demand? What is our third demand?
Civil Rights Division.
My name is Frank Williams. I'm the director of the Extended Program. Excuse me. I'm the director of the Senior Extended Program in San Francisco.
Speak louder, brother.
There was 103 shots fired at one black and one brown person. Alex Nieto, 59 shots, in which he had his hand in his pocket, and they found bone fragments in his pocket to verify in which the taser that they claimed that he shot, experts found out that it was fired 4 minutes after his death. We have Mario Woods who was shot at 44 times. Execution. What do we want? We want Chief Surefire for the simple reason that he is incapable and incompetent of running this police department in San Francisco.
That's right.
Who is one of the highest police chiefs in the United States of America. He is a disgrace to San Francisco.
By design. By design.
Number 2, the POA need to be investigated. We want the president of the POA taken away out that POA because he has shown to be a racist. He has shown to even try to cater to us by using black puppets to make donations to black organizations just to show face. Number 3, we want that police commission changed. The same police commission has been on that police commission for the past 11 years and haven't did one damn thing to amend any general orders. Over all the deaths that occurred within the last 10 years, they haven't done anything. Number 4, we want the general orders changed and amended. Number 5, somebody needs to address Governor Brown, who approved the Police Bill of Rights, that most people do not know that he is the one that approved it here, one of 17 states that have the Police Bill of Rights, that didn't pass in Congress, that got passed through state legislation, which was Governor Brown, who needed to be addressed about this document that was created by police out of New York, in which there's no way in between to break up that cycle with the way they wrote up that police. Something need to be done. I think that you guys already have all the information. I mean, we can go on and on from wealth disparities over the last 10 years who did these type of investigations as far as how black and brown people are affected in San Francisco alone, economically, housing, you name it, we already got it documented. Everything is documented. You guys have already heard how they even have a Brady bill, a Brady list, in which most people here don't even know anything about that, where the public defender's office, the police department, internal affairs office, the district attorney office have this list of police who can't even testify because they've been caught in lies.
Correct.
Another one is that what need to be amended and changed is how these police can commit murder, or even if they were protecting somebody in some other type of disbarment of their arms, they should not be able to go right back to work a month later. They shouldn't be working right back in the communities. If they're going to be off on leave and they feel like paying them, they're fine, but they shouldn't even be getting paid when you have a video that shows the use of excessive force. So why do we have these different guidelines and laws if they're not going to be implemented? And from the Alex Nieto case alone, we already see that within this city government, there's some camaraderie going on. They all protect one another. There is no way that that district attorney should have let that case went on. Should have stopped that case and said the San Francisco Police Department didn't do anything wrong. And here they are shooting a taser 4 minutes after that boy's death. Yes, it's a lot that needs to be done. We want the Civil Rights Division in on this, period. And we are requesting, but we not begging, but we are requesting that you guys have a Civil Rights Department come down here the same way we got that, the same way the Nieto family got the DOJ to investigate that murder, and now we see the truth come out, and we know if y'all do it, we'll see some more truth come out. We need the truth. We need to get rid of this bunch.
Good evening. My name is Carl Nolan. I'm a Native American. I am veteran. Again, I am a veteran of 8 years of an honorable discharge. When I see the stuff that I see today on the news and murders, I reflect back to when I was honored with the privilege to defend this country and all that it stands for. While I was being taught to soldier, I was also taught rules of engagement, codes of conduct, and the consequences of stepping outside of those. Not only was I not to step outside of those myself as a soldier, and we're talking legal and moral, but if I was to see anybody else, any of my comrades, maybe the general and I a private, stepping outside of these rules of engagement or this code of conduct, I was to relieve them then, or drop them. It doesn't matter if they're first day on the job or if it's the last day on the job. If they did not get the proper training, which includes the consequences equal to civilian or a court-martial, then I cannot condone any of their actions. I believe that consequences equal to the rest of our society may allow these public servants to take their jobs a little more serious and do what is.
He stayed late, he has to do his homework.
Hello, my name is Hatim Ansari. I'm a senior at Michigan High School, and I've been working hard to reform the police here at Michigan San Francisco, ever since December 2014. And I've been to a lot of town halls. Most of the time, I'm only youth there, and it's just like, I'm tired of just waiting. We need some justice right now. And ever since, in January 2015, me and my peers, we had a demand. We had a 5-point plan to help rid of police brutality here in San Francisco. And they said they were going to work on it in the city of San Francisco, but really there has been no accountability, and that's the issue here. A lot. I keep hearing it being brought up that there's no accountability. Even if you guys listen to us and you guys said you're going to do the things that we asked you to do, how do we know? How do we make sure that you guys are going to do those things? How do we make sure that those things that you say you're going to do, you're actually going to do it?
They're not.
And
bullshitting. Respect this young man's words.
Another thing is, there's too many officers that don't look like us, our community. We want more officers that actually represent what the communities are serving. More ground, like stop hiring officers that are not familiar with the community. We stop hiring officers outside of San Francisco. Another thing is, a lot of officers they can't work like outside of San Francisco. They have done some, shot innocent civilian. They can't work at that county anymore, but they come and they can work for other counties. I don't think that should be allowed at all. They cannot be working at any other county. Also, there needs to be more time. There's only police officers here in San Francisco only get 6 months of training before they get a badge and a gun and are allowed to use their force. I think 6 months is too less of a time for training. They need more training, if not more intensive training, because clearly they do not know the law as they keep violating our citizens' rights in the Constitution. And me as a black person in America, as a black man in America, I should not be terrified. I am terrified of police, but I feel like as citizens we should not be terrified of police. They are to protect and serve. They are serving their community, serving us. Why do we feel like we are scared of them? Why do we want them to not serve us? Why are we scared of them? That should not be happening, but it is happening. I feel like there needs to be more community policing. Instead of me seeing officers in their car patrolling around, in the Bayview, I should be seeing them walking, talking to us, especially the youth. They see us as criminals, but I just got accepted into college and I'm trying to go to college. I'm not a criminal. I'm trying to go. I'm tired of reading. I'm tired of seeing. I'm tired, me hearing stories with my friends, and even I experienced. I'm being stopped in the middle of the street. A police officer comes to us and says, "You got to be respectful towards the officer." It's kind of like a threat in a way. Like, why are you threatening us? We're not doing anything. We just came from a football game. Why are you stopping us? Why are you searching in our pockets? What probable cause we have? And a lot of us, us youth especially, do not know our rights. And that's the problem, that these police officers are not saying our rights, and they're taking advantage, they're exploiting us. So we want justice for Mario Woods, justice for Alex Miller. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Melody. I'm speaking to the issue that last August, the Department of Justice put out a statement of interest saying that it was against people's civil or constitutional rights if you're homeless to be moved along by the police when there is nowhere else for you to go. And to that point, I have a statement that I'd like to read. Sleep is a primary resource needed to make good decisions. Police and meter maids continue to strip us of our right to rest, strip us of our resources to recover from our circumstances. Interrogators in every country know that total sleep deprivation is a form of torture. My mere existence is breaking the law. This law and the no parking signs are telling me that I don't have the right to exist. Since these signs have been posted, I am thrust into parking where I am not safe, nor is my vehicle safe. Drug users, garbage dumping, defecating, urinating all around my vehicle, loss of time and energy cleaning up after them, have been broken into, the battery stolen, alternator, tools worth over thousands of dollars of materials and supplies to keep my vehicle in working order. I am treated by the meter maid and the police like I am a criminal. I'm spoken to as if I am vermin, and I'm criminalized for the very crimes being perpetrated against me. The city allows its meter maids and police to terrorize me while insinuating that it's for my own good. Allowing this mindset without education nor correction is appalling. Though it is my responsibility, I am not the cause of my homelessness. And again, I ask you for a safe place to park, because without your help and support, I cannot overcome my circumstances, and thus I am a scapegoat of societal hypocrisy, which demands that I overcome my circumstances while stripping me of every single resource required to do so. So I'd like to thank you all very much for your time. I'm a Bayview Police Community Meetings citizen since 2009. I'm a CCF Evans campus student since 2009. I'm a NERT volunteer since 2011. I'm a scrap volunteer since 2011. And I belong to the San Francisco Folk Music Club since 1982. And I'm a San Francisco resident since 1979. And I just have a question, rhetorical. How does taking away a man's only assets help him overcome being homeless? The answer is by deliberately, willfully, premeditatedly, intentionally stressing his physical and emotional health and maintaining that stress level until he dies a premature death. You've probably known someone whose house is burned down in a fire. Regardless of monetary value, whether you have $1 million home or a home in a cardboard box, the value of your home to your well-being is the same value of my home to my well-being. The difference between a fire destroying a home versus the DPW, the SFMTA, or the police destroying a home is that a fire may not be able to be prevented, whereas a home destroyed by the DPW, the SFMTA, or the police is not only preventable, it's intentional. Thank you.
Yes, well, good evening. So at the previous town hall, I made a request to this federal body that you should go public and make it clear that you're not investigating the San Francisco Police Department as well as the Mario Willis case. You need to make it clear. Just today, even today, the San Francisco Examiner, they're still saying that this group here out of Washington, D.C. is here to investigate the department. And they also mentioned Chief Sir, as well as the mayor, called you in here. Now, President Obama promised us transparency. And it would be unwise for you or anyone else to tell us that we don't have a right to know who called you to our city.
Yes, yes.
We want to know. We want to see the letter that came from Mayor Lee, from Chief Sir. The Board of Supervisors definitely didn't send you a letter. They passed a resolution calling for the DOJ Civil Rights Division. So before we get to talking about studying recommendations, the recommendation that needs to be made clear is to Attorney General Loretta Lynch.
That's right, that's right.
We want an investigation. We want this city to be investigated like all the other cities. By the way, Mario Woods was shot by 5 cops. In other cities, you have 1 cop shooting 1 person, and somehow the Attorney General stepped in. It don't make sense.
That's right, Brother Daniel.
You're 10, 15, maybe even 20 years too late.
That's right.
This city is on the verge of explosion in terms of the people rallying up, rising up, and you will see things that we've been seeing in this country for 400 years. When 53 people died in the Rodney King riots, there was some who said, did we learn anything from Watts? Did we learn anything from the past? Obviously, that question is no. So we want Loretta Lynch to answer to us, why aren't this city being investigated from the Civil Rights Division? Now, I represent Justice for Mario Willis Coalition.
That's right.
Our organization that supports, along with many other organizations throughout the city and Bay Area, put together a website called DOJinvestigatesfpd.com a year ago. So we made it clear to even the police commission, call on the DOJ back then. Now this is before Mario Woods was executed by the SFPD. So how can we even trust you or anyone else coming to us in this time and order when we see that when we make a cry to this commission, this city, these officials, there's always seems to be no answer.
That's right.
But you want us to come out, you don't really put out the information that's necessary to bring the real community out, and then you come here and act as if somehow you have some type of power to fire Chief Sir. That's not under your purview.
That's right, that's right.
So what we really need to be talking about here, you need to go back to Washington, D.C. and rally our demands. You need to join the Justice for Mario Woods. That's the atonement process. You need atonement from this body. I'm holding in this hand a petition of signatures across diverse groups here in San Francisco, the citizens of San Francisco. And I want to do this publicly because sometimes things get lost in the mail when they want things to get lost in the mail. So I'm going to hand this off to you, the petition here, and we want a response from our Attorney General on the federal level. It's unacceptable that we will not get an official response from our Attorney General. She needs to write every San Franciscan and explain why that the federal government does not see it fit to come here after we've been dealing with this rogue department since its conception. Amen. It's unfair, it's unreasonable, and it's not going to be accepted by the Justice for Mario Woods Coalition, along with any other ones who want to see truly that these cases and this department and this chief be fired go forward. Thank you very much.
All right, my brother, you need to put that All Lives Matter shirt down because it's necessary for us to remind people that Black Lives Matter. We had to do it. Recently, San Franciscans were surprised when a San Franciscan Klansman was involved in an Anaheim brawl. And my response to that was, why are you surprised? We have one of the biggest clans in the United States of America. It's called the SFPOA. And they are run by the Grand Wizard, Halloran, and they get their instructions from their other Grand Wizard, Chief Sir. So we may be a progressive and diverse city, but we have a police department that takes its examples from a terrorist organization. In my mind, they are a faction of a terrorist organization. And black and brown people in San Francisco are victims of terrorism at the hands of people who are not in suicide vests. They're in Kevlar vests. They're not screaming jihad. They're screaming freeze, hands up. I don't come from a poor neighborhood. I went to private school. My parents were entrepreneurs. They did very well for themselves. But I am still afraid of the police. My grandfather was a police officer here, and the minute he retired, he said, San Francisco Police Department is one of the most racist organizations. Really? That's what you're dealing with. And for you to come in and do this whole dog and pony show, like, oh, here, we're taking care of your problems with our cops review, created by law enforcement officers, is an insult to the people of San Francisco. Our civil rights are being violated on a larger scale than Ferguson, on an equal scale as Chicago, and New York City, and Boston, and South Carolina, and Texas, and every goddamn state in this country. Because we're progressive, because we have equal rights for LGBT people, does not mean that we have equal rights for black and brown people. And you'll see that in the Alexander case. Look at what the police department did. They lied. They lied on a federal stand. And they expect us to buy it because their chief has set that precedent. He's not my chief. He is their chief. He is their grand wizard who gives them directives on how to terrorize people of color. And it doesn't matter how little or how much money that person of color makes, they're at risk. Because they want to move in white people who work in tech and can pay the high rents That's all they want. No one else is relevant in this city. That's all that matters. And they will demean and insult and sexually assault and sexually demean people of color. They will go into their SROs and they will rob them. They will send text messages calling them animals, calling them niggers, calling them bitches. I'm sorry to use this profane language, but this is a standard set by us at PD. This is a standard set by the people who are supposed to protect and serve this community. But they only protect and serve property and wealth.
That's the truth.
So go back to DC and tell your civil rights department that there is a problem here in San Francisco.
That's
larger
right.
than Missouri, larger than Chicago, and that it's being silenced by a progressive city hall, and that we're not going to take it anymore. Like Brother Daniel said, we're on the verge of explosion. I mean, how long are they going to step on our necks before we turn around and grab their leg and throw them on the ground?
Fire Chief Sir. Fire Chief Sir.
Fire Chief Sir.
Fire Chief Sir.
Fire Chief Sir. Fire Chief Sir. Fire Chief Sir. Fire Chief Sir.
Thank you.
My name is Daryl Ross.
You don't think you're black as all
Today is my birthday.
Respect the voices of the people who
We here that to celebrate that birthday. I'm 70 years old. Been an activist since the 50s. And the problem is persistent. If you look at the history of all the people we've been talking about, this young man, no, the NATO, right? He was, when he was shot, the police chief immediately said he was the one in the wrong. We go to Mario Woods. First thing out of the police chief's mouth is, Mario Woods was in the wrong.
All of us get shot.
Anytime that the head of the police department is saying to his officers that what you do, no matter what it is, we will justify it. We will make sure that nothing happens to you. And we will back you from the moment you pull the gun till the time you walk through court. And not just if you get to a court, we guarantee that the district attorney is only going to go light on you. He's not going to really prosecute you. And at the time in which they should be pushing you is when they're saying, well, it sounds like they did everything right. Why is that? The only reason that is because they wish to insult our intelligence. They wish to make us think that you're doing something when you're doing absolutely nothing, such as this committee. This committee is here to make us think that you're doing something when you're doing absolutely nothing.
Take advantage of it.
Now, I understand that most of the people that are sitting right here that are part of this commission believe in their heart of hearts that what they're doing is the right thing. But guess what? If it's not what we want, it's wrong. If it's not what we need, then it's unnecessary. If it's not what we ask for, then why are you doing it? Because everything from that point on goes on deaf ears. No one's listening to someone who's saying, we're here to help you, and all you have to do is believe
believe in us. When we've seen that from the time of this country's perception, right, they handed out treaties to the Indians. And how many of them did they keep? They told the African American when he first arrived that we love you. All you have to do is follow what we ask. Unfortunately, following what he asked is what caused us to lose everything. So what I'm saying at this point is that the only real thing that's possible here is for one, stop yanking our chains and telling us what we need and start giving us what we ask for. The only thing that's going to work is when you stop yanking our chains and give us what we want. And we're not requesting it, as you can tell. We're demanding it. This is not a request. We're asking you politely to take this and move it on back to Washington and send out the people we want. Because this isn't going to help us. This is not going to help us. It's not going to change anything. You went into Oakland talking about changing that police department. And, oh, look at all the good work we've done. Killing blacks and brown. So, thank you very much, but you're not me.
So we're saying, and the police use intimidation, and so they did it to me, and so we want, Brother Mario Rich should have been shot that many times. We want an independent investigation. We want to fire Chief Sir. Yeah. We want those officers charged with murder. There's no excuse for that. Right. They know that they could use other tactics. They want to try to make it seem like they don't know, but they know. And so, you know, how come we can't just be somewhere, you know, we ain't even doing nothing, they pull us over or, you know, say something to it. That doesn't make any sense. You know, they use excuses. All of these murders that has happened all over the world is unnecessary. They didn't have to shoot Harden like that when he was walking, you know, just because he didn't pay whatever on the, they don't have to do that. They could have immediately did something else for that, and they just use excuses just to kill us. And so we need to be strong, and we don't need to keep letting them walk over us like this. And we need to know our rights, like the one brother said, you know, it's the youth. And it starts with me because they don't listen, you know, and we need to not let them scare us. Because underneath that blue uniform, they're a regular person. And so the same stuff they do to us, we can do to them. We can take them and make complaints. So us as people, we need to stay strong and stop letting them walk all over our bodies, because we are human beings. And this police violence just gotta stop. And sir, you gotta go. You know, he sat up there and said that was justifiable. It wasn't justifiable. You know, you could have gave him his rights. I know he could have gave him his rights. One police officer could have did that. It didn't take 5 police officers for them to do that. So they use excuses. And so I'm just here because this police violence needs to stop. And we need, and they need to stop, and they need to be held accountable. And they need to go to jail. We gotta go to jail, you go to jail.
All right, all right, all right,
my name is Sean Silhorst, and first of all, thank you for coming. Second of all, what took you so long to get here? We've had years and years and years of police who are out of control, who are not held accountable. There's no transparency. We've had the corrupt cop badge cams that were talked about for over 3 years ago. They still aren't on their chests when they're out there. That's why you need innocent people who have phone cameras around to
take video of the incident, otherwise people deny it and they get away with it again and again and again. Okay, I thank you for coming. Now I want to have a criticism. You said you first met with the police officers. That's one group of perpetrators. Then you said you met with the stakeholders, which I assume are the political big shots and the landowners and the other perpetrators. And now you're meeting with the peasants, the people. I would have liked you to have done it in a slightly different order and maybe have more than 1/3 of your meetings be with the peasants and not 2/3 of the meetings be with the perpetrators. Just a suggestion. Okay. The main thing, and everybody has been talking about it, and I'm going to repeat it, is accountability. When they get away with it, they do it again and again and again. And we have a chief who has a history of breaking the law over and over and over again, and that's how he got the job. Think about what that says. You break the law and you're promoted in this town. And I have other examples. Have you ever heard of, you're going to hear about a guy named Chuck Limbert. He was the LGBTQIA lead cop in the Castro. He's a criminal. He was removed under duress a year ago. And you know what his job now is? He's a fire commissioner up in North Coast. So when you commit crimes in San Francisco, you either get promoted internally within the city, or you go somewhere else and get promoted to a higher position. That is not accountability. That is the opposite of accountability. Excuse me. I get a little worked up. By the way, point number 8. You're in the Mission District Station area. This is the heart of the corruption in San Francisco. The Mission Station is notoriously the most corrupt station in the entire city. And it's not by coincidence that over half of the DCCC all live in the 8th District, which is policed by the Mission Station. The Mission Station is where Chief Sir was before he got promoted. The Mission Station is where Chuck Limbert was. The Mission Station is where Raj Vaswani was before he got made captain by Chief Sir. The Mission Station is where Simon Silverman was before he got promoted to captain by Chief Sir. Chief Sir and all his cronies now run the police department in San Francisco.
Greg Corrales.
Oh, I'm sorry. Greg Corrales was in Mission Station before the guy who's there now, and he was corrupt. The corruption is rampant in this town. But here's I think my final point. You need to aim higher. Stop looking at the rank and file officers. They're the least of the problem. The problem is in the higher ranks, starting with Chief Sir, but not just him, and it's even higher than that. Have you looked at the mayor's office? He appointed the chief. He's the one who keeps supporting the chief despite all of his transgressions. Have you looked at some of the supervisors, like Scott Wiener, who represents this district, who's lockstep with Chief Sir? Probably because he was in on the deal that got Chief Sir appointed in the first place, which is all part of the deal that had that reappointed mayor in the first place. And by the way, our district attorney used to be the chief of police. How is that accountability when he can't even investigate his former self? That is called looking after your own. That is called doing your own work. It's a conflict of interest, and Gaston is not the right person. I think this really is my final point. Again, thank you for coming, but you're 3 levels removed from whom should be here. It should be the police commission that deals with this. They should be holding the police chief and all the policemen accountable. They're not, because they're in the pocket of the mayor and the POA. SFPOA is the heart of corruption in this town. And if it wasn't the police commission, it should be the board of supervisors. They don't do anything about it. And if it wasn't going to be them, it should be Attorney General Kamala Harris, who knows all about the corruption in this town. She used to be part of it. Has she done anything about it? No! So we have people from the federal government, 3 levels above where they should be, people who should be taking care of this, and you're well-meaning people, you have 0 power to do anything about it. So we appreciate your efforts, we appreciate your good intentions, but we're not super hopeful about the outcome. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to step over here and continue where I was, but I also want to point out that there's another set of law, a book of law, that applies to this situation. It's called the RICO Act, where if you're running a corrupt and organized enterprise which deprives a class of people of their due process and civil rights, you're also eligible to have that RICO Act applied to you. So I would like you to tell Loretta Lynch, your civil division and your criminal division that there's statistical proof to show how people, our citizens, are being murdered by cops, and you got statistics to prove it that excessive force is taking place, and by the same response, there's several shots always in the backs of the people who've been murdered. Okay, there's no excuse for that. So now I want to finish up where I left off pertaining to Title 18 of the United States Code Service. I spoke about Act 241. The last part of that Act 241 says that a person shall not be fined under this section. Says a person shall not be fined under this title, shall be imprisoned for any term of years or for life, or both, or may be sentenced to death. That kind of literature, which is federal law, should be applied to these officers who's committing murder. And you talk about training, even though it's not part of our job, our community, to train the police officers, you should have this in the class with them to let them know that if you murder a citizen after you graduate from this cadet police training school, you're eligible to be fined for thousands of dollars and can serve a prison term and get life or death for killing a person in the community that you're supposed to be policing. Okay. Now, Act 242 is called deprived of civil rights under the color of law. Okay. Deprive any citizen of their rights, privileges, or immunities, or secured or protected rights by the Constitution or laws of the United States, okay, or attempt to kill or shall not be fined under this title or imprisoned for any term of years or for life or both, or may be sentenced to death. Okay, now that's Act 241 of the overall Title 18 section of federal criminal law. That's why I want this information to be passed over to the Federal Criminal Division of the Justice Department, because we're not going to get no justice in the local system, in the local government. We're not going to get that done by the Office of Citizens Complaints. We're not going to get that done by the police internal affairs. They're there to do nothing but further frustrate us, and we want justice done in the United States Federal District Court for the Northern District of California, not the local government. Now, there's additional law pertaining to federal protective activities. It's called Act 245, where if you're getting federal funds and you happen to be located on property, which is San Francisco property. San Francisco police is receiving federal funds, okay? So they're eligible to have this law applied to them as well, okay? Upon certification and right by any Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, or Associate Attorney General, or any Assistant Attorney General, any person in violation shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both, and any body injury results from the acts committed in violation of this section, or if such acts include the use, attempted use, or threat of use of dangerous weapons, explosives, or fire, shall be fined under this section or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both, or if death results from the kidnap, aggravated sexual assault, abuse, or attempted or committed aggravated sexual abuse, or attempts to kill or kill, shall be fined under this title and imprisoned for any term of years or for life, or both, or maybe sentenced to death. You make this part, you make this part of that training program, and our communities will have a damn good understanding with the police department if they understand that they're eligible to have this federal law applied to them if they kill somebody in our communities. One more thing.
My name is Mohammed Al-Kareem. I'm a resident of Bayview Hunters Point. I'm the founder of the Bayview Papers after 1976. I want to give you a history of the police department that I know, and I also lived in Chicago. I didn't want to talk about two people. Matthew Johnson was shot in the back, running away from the police back in the 60s. And Fred Hampton, Chicago, he was murdered by the police department. He was murdered by the state police department. But what I like to say is, I was the president of the Bayview Merchants Association, and I never spoke out about this, but you know, San Francisco is a pretty racist town. And you gotta understand, you know, we fighting for justice for Wood, Alex, NATO, and the other brothers, black and brown together. You know, we dealing with some crazy stuff going on in the city. You know, you gotta follow the money. It's the money. And the people that we expect to be looking out for us is all about game and getting in politics and moving up the ladder. And the people are left behind. And one of the problems is with this Mario Woods and the drugs that came into Bayview Hunters Point. We gotta look at what happened when Dan White murdered George Moscone, the mayor, and Supervisor White. Dan White was a police officer, ex-police officer, and an ex-fireman. All lies. And I don't know what I have to say to you, anybody that's in this city trying to represent and trying to deal with this madness is ludicrous. I mean, I don't even believe you're going to solve any problem. You know, I can't take it to the next level, but I could just say, you know, we need to stay on this path because this is probably the best way to keep us from going crazy on what's going on out there. But I'd like to just say that if you follow the money, you know, I'm a contractor, and Mayor Lee, Edwin Lee, was the head of the Human Rights Commission. And they had a scandal already about what's going on in there. And certain people got contracts and stayed getting contracts. You know, I asked for help and I didn't get no help. So my situation, they just squashed it. I sent information to the board of the Human Rights Commission and I didn't get anything. But what I'm saying to you is the history of this city is corruption. Jeez. All the way down from the painters union, part of the painters union, of the union painter. And one of the biggest issues was the housing authority. The housing authority would let out contracts and they would make a phony bid and they would just rotate to get that money from the house. I didn't know this, but I'm just finding out by dealing with Mario Woods' coalition. But what I want to say, the solution to this problem is the coalition is asking that the chief police be fired. He's asking that the police officers who were involved in the shooting should be laid off and be charged with murder. They shouldn't be getting any money or getting any pay until this issue is resolved. And you have this so-called powers to do this. You're the federal government, and you should be able to do that. But the final thing is an independent investigation. I don't know if you can investigate, because you acting like you're the fox in the chicken coop trying to find out who's killing the chickens. And I don't see how you gonna do it, but I'm hoping that you do it. These people here, they want justice. And we want justice for Mario Wood, Alex, and all the other brothers and sisters who've been killed in San Francisco and America.
All lives matter because all black lives matter.
Black lives matter.
What Willie Ratliff said, when he told me 17 years ago it's about contracting, it's all about contracting. My name is Mark. I live here in the Mission District, been here for 17 years, or 27 years now.
Louder, closer.
In 2003, I worked on the Prop H campaign that did police reform at the Police Commission. I was co-campaign manager on that.
Closer.
We busted ass, we won the election, but it wasn't for shit. We got the Police Commission expanded, we got changes in the whole disciplinary thing, but nothing changed. We did what we had to do through the process, and the process failed us. Unfortunately, you guys here are not going to be able to help us, so I'm going to talk to the community today and see what my observations are.
Keep the mic to your mouth so we can hear it.
The POA is the rot of the problem. They should be prosecuted under RICO for serial, corrupt, criminal acts that benefit themselves. This is a huge extraction racket that's coming out in the backs of San Francisco. It's got to stop. Management and labor cannot be in the same union. That's the ultimate conflict of interest. Greg Sir and the average rank-and-file cop are in the same damn union. That has to be broken right now. The POA has to be prevented from participating in politics. They contribute to candidates for election, and those candidates roll over and are soft on the cops. They're in this one group called Jobs for San Franciscans right now that's aligned with every developer, every business that's trying to gentrify this city into a condo desert. They've got to be kept out of politics just like members of the military are, okay, at the federal level. They have guns, right? The St. Ignatius Sacred Heart cabal of Catholic schoolboys that Greg Sir heads has to be rooted out of that police department. This goes back to old-time West Side Catholic San Francisco, and is what is driving this department into a corrupt cesspool. You know, I was volunteering in the Board of Supervisors 10 years ago, and we had to do an override to get foot patrols. The cops were kicking and screaming about getting out of their cars and coming into the neighborhoods. We had to go to the ballot box to get that expanded because the mayor and the police department would not have any of it. Cops don't live in this city. In New York City, cops have to live in the adjacent counties. In San Francisco, we need to require first responders to live within 30 minutes of San Francisco in case there is a goddamn earthquake. I want these people in here able to do stuff for a change. But they can't do that, right? So that's what we have to do. There's legal basis for it. We have to move forward to make sure that the folks with the badges and the guns are our neighbors, and we know them, and we can hold them accountable as communities. We need to also provide affordable housing for these folks to be sure that first responders can live here in the city. I don't want to have cops, but we have to have them. I want them to be part of this community so we can see them all the time and they know us, and they come to know this community as a place that's diverse and beautiful. The police commission needs to be replaced with something different. We tried to reform it with Prop H. We did our best, we won the election, but we lost the war. I don't know what that's going to look like, but the community has the wisdom to figure that out, figure something different. They need to be prevented, commissioners have to be prevented from running for office. David Campos kept the seat warm in the police commission. Did he do anything on police reform? Of course not. He didn't want to rock the boat, then he got elected supervisor. And he sat on his hands while condos were being put into our city, gentrifying us. These politicians don't give a damn about you. It's all about them making the next jump to get paid. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. Teresa Sparks also did the same thing. She was one of the first appointments to the police commissioner, then she ran against Jane Kim and Deborah Walker and lost. But she carried water for the police endorsed her, and that's the cycle of corruption right there in campaign finance. It's got to stop. Discipline. How the hell do we discipline these cops? The OCC's not going to do it. There's no internal review. What do the experts say we need to do to insulate discipline from the police from all of this political interference that we're seeing in corruption? That's the real nut of the problem there. I don't know what the answer to it is. The community knows the answer, though. You know, if you sue the cops for civil rights violations because they killed your kid, Dennis Herrera, if you lose that case, he's going to come and sue you for court costs for going to find justice for your relatives. That simply has to stop. Sunshine, the police department routinely breaks the city sunshine ordinance. They never produce documents. They have to be made to actually be honest. You all had the same thing. The cops gave you the hand, and what do we do about that? We can't find out what our $500 million police department, think about that, $500 million a year for this shit. And this is what we're getting from it, nothing. This is corruption. We need United Nations blue helmets in here. It's like after the earthquake, the board of supervisors and the mayor in 1906, they were all in jail for the corruption. We need to be sure that these elected officials, once they do our bidding, are sent to jail. It's got to happen. The police are too lazy to fight crime. They'd rather fight us. And I got one thing to say. Civil rights is where it's got to go. And the Mario Woods Coalition, I adopt all your demands. Just keep on doing what you're doing. You make me proud to be a San Franciscan. Right on.
I'm Jennifer Friedenbach, and I'm a mother of a child who's a student here at Mission High. I'm a resident of this neighborhood.
Can hear you.
I'm also the director of the Coalition on Homelessness. And I want to just talk a little bit. You know, I've got two children, both teenagers. One of them is brown skinned, one of them is white skinned. And I really have this true belief in the intuitive nature of children and how they're really perceptive and are able to really draw these realities in ways that are very profound. And my two children experience police very differently. And so my one son, who's brown skinned, is very fearful of the police. And when he sees police officers, he's, he gets very, very nervous. He wonders what's going to happen. And my white-skinned son has a very different experience. He's completely comfortable going up to a police officer and introducing himself. And so I just wanted to kind of note that reality and sort of draw attention to the reality here in San Francisco, which is a very disparate city, very disparate. And you can look at whether you're talking about rates of homelessness, who gets evicted, and especially when we talk about our criminal justice system, which is outrageous, right, in terms of a very small proportion of African Americans, and our jails are swelled with African Americans. In police shootings, when we look back on police shootings in San Francisco, there's two kind of unique identifiers that people who've been shot by the police fall into one or oftentimes both categories. The first one I know we've talked about a lot tonight, and that's people of color. The other portion of people who have been shot by police, and it's over half, is people who are in psychiatric crises.
Oh my
I have been working, and my organization has been working for a long time on trying to reform the way that police respond to people who are experiencing a psychiatric crisis. And it started originally with the killing of a boy, Idris Snelling, in the Metreon Theater here in San Francisco. And we pushed for the police department to change the way they approach people. And of course, the way police are trained and the way the Department General orders are written is that you give commands, and if the person doesn't respond to the commands, you use force. And then you increase the use of force until they respond. And of course, folks who are in psychiatric crises, also maybe people who are not speaking English or are hearing impaired or a whole host of different situations are frozen in fear, don't respond to the commands. And then they are subject to force. And so we really tried to push to get them to change. The police was very, very resistant to that. We went to the board of supervisors, kind of shoved it down their throats. They never really implemented it. And then it was tossed out altogether. It was called police crisis intervention. We then came back through the police commission a few years ago and tried to get this going again. They did adopt a resolution, and interestingly enough, the resolution was in response to the introduction of tasers, to the electronic control weapons. And there was huge community resistance to having tasers in San Francisco. And there's been a lot of research on this, and I'm going to talk about it in a moment. But basically, they said, let's try changing the way we respond to people instead. Let's try using verbal de-escalation instead of weapons. Let's try doing this other thing instead of force. So they did the training, and they really haven't done much else. They haven't operationalized crisis intervention training. They haven't made sure that there was a plan when they got to the scene, that it was CIT officers that responding, that there's a sergeant there that's creating a tactical plan, that there's a review process to see if their verbal de-escalation skills work. The training itself is all volunteer run. It doesn't have the proportion of de-escalation that needs to happen. There's a whole host of things there that need to happen. It really hasn't come in place. And then as we are looking at, and of course the general orders didn't change. So police are still given the orders to use force at the same time and not use verbal de-escalation. I believe right now, and we've experienced a lot of tragedy in San Francisco, and of course with Mario Woods, it was caught on video, and people really feel upset about that, and they feel like there's not going to be justice around that. But I believe there's this huge opportunity for change at this particular moment, and I think that's thanks to a lot of the work that's been done in this room. But we have to change those use of force guidelines that fully implement the crisis intervention team. We have to move away from using force, and we've got to have highly skilled officers responding and using those skills. And I've got some written things I'm submitting to you here. Thank you.
And I'm with the People's Campaign and, of course, Justice for Mario Woods. After one of our meetings the other night, some fellow activists and myself were having a drink and talking about the problems with the police. And we walked out, and I looked across the street, and a cop was throwing a black woman against the wall. I immediately walked straight across and started screaming at him to stop. You need to stop that. What are you doing? You have no right to do that. She was saying, I'm not resisting. I said, she's not resisting. Why are you hurting her? They kicked her legs apart, shoved her neck, and were just treating her horribly. Her friend was next to her trying to defend her, and then they dragged them both in the street. I just kept yelling. Yeah, I know, if I wasn't white, I'd be being treated the same way, but at least I was doing something with the color of my skin. And I didn't stop. I said, shame on you to treat a woman like that. What does it matter to you? Today is International Women's Day. I don't ever want to see a woman treated like that. Ever. And then the cop calls back up on me. 5 cop cars show up, 10 cops jump out, and the cop says, would you tell that woman to stop yelling at me? I mean, the ridiculous of wasting this time. Anyway, that woman I have now been connected to through social media. She was here on a labor meeting from Chicago. She went to a doctor. Her neck is really hurt. Her wrists, he kept asking, loosen this bond on my wrist. No, they didn't arrest her. They just let her go, kept her for 6 hours. Just traumatized her. It was complete harassment. You're not looking here. You're not listening. So, I've been an activist for 40 years, and over again, the government sends a group of people like this who have no power to do anything, only make recommendations, and go on for 2 years, thinking we'll go away. But we're not fucking going away! And I'll tell you why. People get mad at anger. They say, don't be angry, don't show anger. Anger is the only damn emotion we have to express when we're outraged and oppressed.
That's right.
And then we can take this fire and we can burn down this system because it's not broken, it's fixed.
That's right, that's right.
So if you people want to do something, you take the chance in your position to speak out and say, we heard the truth here, and if we're going to sleep at night, we got to tell you, we can't do this. This isn't working what you're asking us to do.
That's
we
right,
need to
that's
stop
right.
This.
That's right.
What we also need to do with this fire is create our own democracy, because we've never had one in America. It was founded on the slavery of black people of color, of women and children. We are all alone. And now a bunch of white men want to tell us we got a democracy. Well, we don't. I want to help create a democracy. I want this fire to turn into a horizontal government in which we learn to have autonomy and we make decisions together for the best of the community. They make us all think that individualism is so important to keep us separate. We're not individuals, we're interdependent. connected. We need each other to do everything, to eat, to grow food, to drive our cars, to fly our planes. So we're connected, and we need to make decisions together and create a new government that's for the people. You want to go after some criminals, you go after some white-collar criminals. You want to stop the problem with guns? Go after the arms manufacturers. It's the biggest industry on the planet. You know what? You know what's under anger? Love. And with that love is grief. Because we're mourning our children getting killed. I'm not going to stand it anymore. I'm a mother and a grandmother. And this government is done. It's a system of slavery, and we need to take the power back and work on creating our own government. And the Justice for Mario Wood's voice that has risen in this city is one of the most powerful forces I've seen in all my years of activism.
Justice for Mario Wood's coalition!
As a member of the Justice for Mario Woods Coalition, our focus is on the same problem of police murder execution as it affects our Latino population here in San Francisco. We have a trial presently going on in San Francisco regarding such a police murder of one Alex Nieto. You heard a lot about him today. Yesterday, as the mother of Alex was tearfully relating who her son was in photos at the trial, according to reporter Sana Salim, and I'll use her own words here, in a shocking display of insensitivity, the officers on trial for use of excessive force that killed Alex Nieto never once looked at the photos displayed on a courtroom screen. Instead, they spent most of their time scribbling and passing notes to each other as Mrs. Nieto broke down in the court. When our coalition speaks to the culture of police violence and complete disregard for the residents of San Francisco, whom they were sworn to serve and protect, this is what we're talking about. And it all stems from a police chief who exemplifies blind loyalty to a blue code of silence and an attitude among his officers of us against them. At yesterday's hearing, a representative from Taser International gave testimony in the court hearing of Alex Nieto. It was revealed that Taser International was the recipient of a no-bid, uncontested contract to the city of San Francisco for tasers and police cameras. At the same time, the representatives from Taser International was there to give testimony for the city attorney, who is representing the police officers involved, concerning the calibration of the taser that Alex Nieto had on his person when he was shot more than 50 times. Besides the fact that a no-bid contract was in play, insinuating a conflict of interest, it should be noted that already San Francisco residents on 4 occasions had made clear to the SFPD that they would not tolerate lasers being used within our city. This is based on a 10-year national survey that concluded that 634 deaths resulted from their use. And yet the SFPD continued to attempt to override the choices made by the people they swore to serve and protect. I mention this again to highlight a police force that must be reined in and a police chief that must step down for his unwillingness to change this culture of violence within his own ranks, which apparently he approves of, based on his attempts now to acquire more weaponry for them to attack their constituents, and completely ignoring the will of the people of San Francisco. You as a body representing the DOJ must carry this message back to Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, that there exists a large divide between the citizens of our city and the police who patrol it.
That's right.
At this point, we're getting close to starting to run out of time. So we've had people who have waited, but I'm going to have to say that we have about 30 minutes, so I'm going to ask you to try to cut your comments as quickly as you can. We only have the facility for so long. We'll stay as long as we possibly can. So I would ask you to try to curtail your comments the best you could. Thank you.
Be considerate of everyone who come out. Be considerate of everyone who come out.
I don't got a lot of time either. Y'all look bored up here. My brother, you sitting here with your head down like you ready to go to sleep. You know, if you need something, I can help you wake up. You know, and we here. You gonna listen to us tonight. And we put y'all as the puppets to sit there and come down here and listen to it. So y'all gonna listen. Thank you for coming out. You know, I'm gonna repeat our demands. First and foremost, if y'all didn't hear it, we want Greg Sir fired. Resigning is a sucker's way out. We want the officers charged with murder. Right? And then we want an independent investigation into the city and into the murders by the police. Okay. Second of all, just a quick little lesson. Black Lives Matter is not saying that nobody else matters. It means right now at this point, us as black people matter. The Constitution was made on all lives matter, and we know that don't mean shit. So that, you my brother, and I'm never gonna attack you, but I gotta give you a real lesson. Cause that shirt you got, nah.
Don't exclude others the way they have excluded you.
Anyway,
okay.
Keep moving forward. I just wanted to, it sucks that we in a time like this, over 400 years later after slavery, we ain't got no better. It's all these policies and politics that's set into place to make it seem like everything is fair and equal and just, but it's not. If it's double standards set up for the same people that make the rules, that they get to break the rules and then they're covered for it, but if somebody who is not a part of that Illuminati type society to do anything, then they get the holy hammer, slammed down on them.
That's right.
We are led by a chief who has murdered people, who condones murder, and people who are accomplices to murder, they get the same charges. If you guys are sitting here to play with us, to sit here and make us think that y'all doing something y'all really not, you guys are accomplices to murder.
That's right.
Seriously. You need to look at that. We tired of coming to these communities. I'm tired of coming. I know y'all tired of going to them. We tired of coming to them. So I'm really fearful that nothing is ever going to change because policy and politics, that really don't do the change. It's the people that are in those positions that need to change.
Yes.
So if we don't do nothing about that, I'm sorry to say, it's sooner or later it's going to be on some justice or else type stuff. Yeah. So thank you for y'all's time. And for asking.
And I'm part of the Justice for Mario Woods Coalition. I'm also a mother and a resident of San Francisco. And as you've heard tonight, we have a real challenge.
I can't hear you right here. I know they can't hear you. You got to talk louder. You hear. Take time and do it right.
Yes, we have a real challenge with accountability in the city of San Francisco.
It's the right thing to say.
Within our police department, the TextGate scandal was reported to the Internal Affairs unit of the San Francisco Police Department, the texts that were referenced earlier, and the Internal Affairs Department did not investigate the texts. So that's why the officers are still on the job, because the time period for the statute of limitations passed, because the Internal Affairs section of the police department did not investigate the officers. The Police Officers Association, just go on their website and read how they present themselves. We were at their community hearing of the Police Commission in January when they arrived in force, 150 officers with their guns, plain clothes, bullying the community, intimidating us, preventing us from testifying, gave their testimony, and then left en masse shouting, "This is how we win, show of force." It was like a game, and this is the way they behaved in front of their oversight, the community, the press. What are they doing when they're out there on the street and nobody is observing them?
I really encourage you to not just take testimony in fora like this, but go walk through Sunnydale. Go walk through Alice Griffith. Spend time in the Tenderloin. Talk to the people that you see. Observe police action with your own eyes. I spend a lot of time in the Bayview and I see disproportionate police action all the time. Some kid runs out of Walgreens with a candy bar or something. The next thing you know, there's 6 cars, a dozen officers, they're apprehending him violently. It's absurd the amount of force that is being applied in the community. And I don't see that same amount of force applied in my community. In fact, I don't even see any enforcement in my community. I was at Outside Lands. I saw tons of white and Asian kids violating all kinds of laws with the police all around us and nobody doing anything about it. That's why we demand that Chief Sir fire. We demand that they charge the cops with murder, and we demand an independent investigation. This is absurd. Like, when something really terrible happens, you investigate it so that you can learn from it, so that it doesn't happen again. I don't even understand why that would be controversial. The only reason to not investigate it is if you don't care if it happens again, or if you care more about the inconvenient truths that the investigation reveals than you do about it happening again. So this is why we urge you, really get to know San Francisco. It is a challenging, I'm not going to lie, it is, I'm sure, a challenging city to police, right? We have a high number of mentally ill people, we have a high number of intoxicated people, we have a high number of homeless people living in our streets. Therefore, we need a police force and an entire system that is designed to serve this community, not to escalate things and to cause death when what people really need is to be cared for and protected. We need to redesign the entire culture of the police force and the way that it operates in our city to align to who our city is. And what we have now is a complete and utter disregard for humanity, and it cannot go on.
You're good.
Welcome, Washington, D.C. citizens. I want to thank you for coming. I want to welcome you to real San Francisco. This is real San Francisco right here. Like you said, walk to Sunnydale. And I was just sitting in line and I just wrote a few things I wanted to get across. A lot of us ever hear from y'all is we're not in position of power to do this or change that. As if your voice doesn't even matter. We understand that all of you probably worked hard to get in your position to be a part of the Department of Justice, hopefully to make change and help shape history. And this is your chance to make a statement and be a part of making history. Real history in San Francisco. I'm sure you guys see the news, that's your job. You see the demonstrations, you see the protests, the youth walking out of school. This is the community talking. You can see it in your survey that you guys put up there. And the shame on you for the only words out of your mouth was, what about the crime? And you the brother here. Shame on you, whatever your name is. This should be your goal. You said earlier that we need to hold the police accountable. I heard you say that. And we have. We've been doing everything within our power and beyond. It's you, the DOJ. You need to help us hold the SFPD accountable. The goal is to get Chief Sir fired, the highest paid chief of police in America, and is covering up every single murder that he was on watch for and should be responsible for, period.
He's a killer.
So just know this, because I'm sure you do know, we all gonna die someday. And like I said before, your voice matters. And you have an audience, so use it. Speak up for what's right. You can help the people make a real difference before you die. You're in position, and you're not a robot, I hope. But till then, we will organize, mobilize, until we die, until I die, and push for these changes to be made, continue to seek justice in your face. Power to the people. Justice for all of you.
Justice for prosecute. Thank you. With regard to the letter to the DOJ, have you guys read it that came from Mayor Lee and Mayor Sir? Quick answer, yes, no? You haven't read the letter? Okay. So then you don't know whether he specifically asked for a cops investigation as opposed to a civil rights investigation. Is that correct? Obviously, because you haven't read the letter. So the next question is, who made the decision to send you guys, which we consider to be the B team, rather than the A team, which would be the Civil Rights Division? Who made the decision at the Department of Justice?
That decision was made by the Department of Justice after a review of the situations across the country and where the best use of resources could be and what could be done.
Okay, I'm asking you, sir, who made the decision? Not how it was made. Who made the decision? Who made the decision?
Ultimately, it's a decision by the U.S. Attorney General.
Okay, so Loretta Lynch made the decision. You probably also don't have any idea whether she was in contact with, for instance, Nancy Pelosi, or for instance with the governor, or for instance with Kamala Harris, or for instance with Dianne Feinstein. You know, this whole thing smells like hell. And I think actually that you guys, the cops department, is being played. You guys are sent out here into a community that is experiencing really bad police violence, and you're being played. You're being put out in front of angry crowds who are angry for very, very good reason. And you're trying to do your thing, which is probably appropriate for a nice suburb somewhere, in middle America, in the flyover states, but it's certainly not appropriate for San Francisco with its history of corruption, with these ongoing police murders, etc., etc. I just want to talk for a second about tasers. My friend Bob mentioned them. In the Nieto case, the taser that was fired was found to have been fired 4 minutes after the police shooting. Then the taser went to Taser International, where they did this whole number of resetting the clock because of a supposed time drift on the taser, so that now it backed the taser up so that it happened simultaneously to the cops firing. And yet, in the court yesterday, the medical examiner testified that there were bone fragments in Alex Nieto's pocket. So how did he fire a taser and end up with bone fragments from his hand in his pocket? What happened then after this whole deal was that Taser International was awarded the contract for multi-million-dollar body cameras to the SFPD. And Chief Sir is sitting up there in the police commission every single time pushing for tasers. Okay? And this is part of the corruption. It stinks to high heaven. Okay? And you guys, I'm sorry, I'm sure you're well-meaning, but you're the B team. You need to go, take care of whatever minor problems they have in the suburbs and flyover country. Send us the Civil Rights Division. Yes! Make that message go up the food chain, and we're going to send that message up the food chain also. Because this is not adequate. It's not adequate to the problems we have here in San Francisco. Thank you.
My name is Edwin Lindo. I stand with the Justice for Mario Woods Coalition. I'm also a candidate for District 9 Supervisor for full disclosure. And the reason I'm standing here right now is that I hope that you're here to find facts to send back to DC, and I hope you speak with Attorney General Lynch and let her know that we have a morally corrupt police department.
That's right.
Let her know that we are bankrupt in justice.
That's right.
That we are failing the citizens of this city, and I'll tell you why. 44% of people arrested
are black.
50% of people booked are black.
That's right. Come on with the statistics.
11 times more likely
to get arrested
in this city if you are black. What those statistics show me is that it has now become a crime
to be black,
to have some melanin. And that is unfortunate. That is incredibly unfortunate. And I'm going to tell you this, that if those numbers don't scream at you, then perhaps our entire system is morally correct. Because examples of these arrests, I was 12 years old, born and raised in San Francisco. A group of Latino and black men from Martin Luther King Middle School were standing on Gary Boulevard, and we're standing next to a bank. SFPD rolls up, puts the high beams on us. They put the cars onto the sidewalk, open the doors, and they get out and they say, sit down, put your hands behind your back. They put handcuffs on us. And they said, let me see your ID. We're 13 years old. And I said, I'm sorry, sir, what's the problem? And he said, the problem is that there's a group of you, and you're lucky I'm not bringing you in as a gang under the definition of the law. And you're standing in front of a bank, and we have a concern that you may be violating federal law. This is absurd. This is our San Francisco Police Department.
Black and brown.
And let's go back to that number. 44% of people arrested are black. Do you know the percentage of the African American population in this city? 3%. It's 3%. That is astonishing. That a population that only has 3% makes up 44% of the arrests in the city.
That's a crime.
Is that our housing plan? That we put them in prison?
Yes.
Is that what we decided to do? Or are we actually realizing that putting black and brown men in prison, which now makes up close to 60% of the state prison population, and then putting them to work to only make 9 to 40 cents a day? Perhaps what we've now created is indentured servitude at best.
That's what it is.
And perhaps slavery at worst. And guess what? Those same corporations that hire these prisoners get a $2,500 tax break.
Say it.
They get more money in return for hiring free labor when those jobs can be out here in the community. And when we say that our police department is supposed to protect and serve and stop crime, they don't stop crime. They show up after the crime has occurred. I'll tell you how we stop crime. We invest in our community. We educate our children. We get them jobs. That's how we get people to stop committing crimes. And I have a minute left, and what I'm going to say is that I plead that you go back to D.C. and you say, we've been listening. And what we hear is that in the most liberal city of San Francisco, the most liberal city in the country, that violated federal law and allowed same-sex couples to get married, are violating the civil rights of its black and brown community. Because that 3% is going to continue to dwindle. But I guarantee you the prison population of African Americans is going to continue to go up.
That's right.
We have 230 African American students in our senior class. That's it, our entire senior class. Less than 30% of them are on track to graduate on time. Less than 80 African American students are going to graduate this year. That is an injustice. And the reason I bring that up is because that is the direct pipeline
to prison.
Or they kill you.
And so what does that have to do with the killing of black and brown men and women in this city? And I apologize if I go for a few seconds. What that has to do is that the overcriminalization of our black and brown people is the result ending in people being dead in cold blood. And so, please listen to us. Because we're not crazy, we're not flamboyant, we are highly sophisticated community members that understand that we stand for justice. And justice is not radical, it's our responsibility, and I hope it's yours as well.
That's right.
My name is Gloria Lariva. I have lived in the Mission for 35 years this year, and I'm running for President of the United States as a socialist, and will be on the ballot in California for Peace and Freedom Party. And I only say that because we're going to use this campaign to demand the indictment of all killer cops, as well as all the other issues that people need. I want to say that I really don't think there's actually a need for an indictment investigation and an independent investigation because the murder of Mario Woods was right in front of video. People could see that he was just walking forward and the police stepped in front of him like, now you're violating us, and they just gunned him down. It was plain. They need to indict the police and let it be resolved in a trial. A real trial with real prosecution.
That's right.
And then, but the message I want to give today that everyone is aware of, and at first I want to salute Minister Christopher Mohammed, Felicia Jones, Mario Woods Coalition, and all the people who made me so proud to be in San Francisco because it made national news, the New York Times, because of the persistence, perseverance, the struggle, the dedication for justice for these young men who've been murdered in cold blood. And only the struggle is going to change things. Only the struggle.
That's right.
Laquan McDonald in Chicago. The people kept fighting for justice, but the video couldn't come out because Rahm Emanuel was hiding it. The whole rotten city police of Chicago, the city of Chicago, everyone knows what Chicago's like. And only when two investigators, two journalists, forced with the Freedom of Information Act, and the judge ruled the video to be released.
Right.
Guess what? First degree murder the cop was charged with, because everyone could see it. Bloody, horrible murder. I couldn't believe it happened. To see the smoke rising from that young man's body, and the family will always suffer. And the young men will always worry what's going to happen when they step outside. And in this city as well, we are so fed up. I want to say something about the Department of Justice, because I've been a long time after this to see what the Department of Justice has done with these investigations that people wait for months, years, just to find out, yeah, there's some wrongdoing here in this city. Philadelphia, Boston, Albuquerque, all these cities have been ruled violating people's civil rights, but nothing happens. Very little happens. Only when people march and protest. Ferguson made everyone wake up in this country, and I was in Ferguson. I was there the night after curfew was called. I was with 3,000 people, mothers, fathers, grandparents, and kids, because it was 4 hours before curfew. It was the second night of curfew. 8 o'clock we start marching peacefully down West Morrison Avenue, and all of a sudden we got blocked by all these militarized vehicles, and the bullets, the rubber bullets started flying. I got shot by one. Women were getting shot trying to flee. Old people getting shot. And it was horrifying. A peaceful march, 3.5 hours before curfew. But the people kept resisting. I'll tell you, it wasn't violent there. There was a gas station that were burned down, but night after night after night, for months those youth marched. And they protested. And that's the only reason that the DOJ is here. I was in 1982 when black families in Oregon, California were being threatened by the Ku Klux Klan and the Nazis. And there was violence, and a young white kid who had joined the Nazis was murdered by this man, Red Worth, and maybe some of you remember that. And the families came here to ask for our help. And in 3.5 weeks, we were organizing a protest against the Klan and Nazis of Oregon. And guess what? The DOJ, the Community Services, Community Relations Department comes down and says, no, to the family, we don't want to march. Let's have an I Love Oregon rally. And the families go, no, we're having a march against racism. But the government was trying to quell it. I was in Buffalo, New York, 1980, when the Ku Klux Klan and the Nazis announced on Martin Luther King's birthday, the first day it was a holiday, they were going to march against Martin Luther King's birthday when 7 black men had been murdered that winter in Buffalo. Guess what? The Klan organizes a rally to get permits from Buffalo. And then we organize an anti-Klan march. And guess what? DOJ comes in and says, no, you can't do that. And then the city starts red-baiting us and all kinds of threats to us. We marched, 2,000 people strong, and pushed back the DOJ. In Oroville, 2,000 people marched. And that man, Booker Neal, who came from the Department of Justice, had egg on his face because the people marched and demanded justice. 2 years later, in San Mateo, a young black youth handcuffed on the ground in a parking lot of a shopping mall. The cop killed him, and there was Booker Neal. Thank you. Only the struggle.
justice for Alexander, justice for Amika, and for all the dead brothers and sisters who passed away to police brutality. All right? And for the KKK, for the record, Brown Pride, Black Power in the Casa. What's good? We're not tolerating that in San Francisco. You know what I'm saying? First thing I want to say, I hear a lot of different stories, different perspectives, and diversity in the crowd, all for one cause. Hold police accountable and stop police brutality. All right? Now, I'll give you an example of what it looks like in SFPD. I grew up here in the city. I grew up in the Bayview. I'm from the Mission. I'm going to tell you this. Back when I was a youngster, man, the police will pull you over, the narcs to be specific, right here in the Mission, 5 blocks down. And they'll pick you up and they'll drop you off in the wrong neighborhood. Set you up for failure. I was 15. I've always looked older. I was 15, they dropped me off on the wrong side. Nothing happened. But just know when that happens, and there's plenty of stories from the Mission neighborhood, when they drop you off, you get your ass beat. You get beat up, you get jumped by people from the other side. You know what I'm saying? That's gonna add a little bit self-hatred, man. But let me speak, man. I want to hear your voice, man. You know what I'm saying? What you say offends me, bro. You know what I'm saying? But to be honest, man, another story, baggy pants, 16 years old, walked through the Mission. I put my pants up. Police put a gun on my head and said, drop the weapon. I'm like, what? He said, don't move. Put me up against the wall, search me. I didn't have anything. He kept searching me. And I'm like, honestly, I just got pulled over like 2 bucks ago. I'm going. He's like, shut the fuck up. He wasn't hearing it. And yes, he was right. You know what I'm saying? I'll be straight with you. Yeah, he was. Hunter's Point. I was at Hunter's Point with my homies from the neighborhood. We're standing at the store. I was on lunch break, working the sandwich at Lee's Food Market right there on Revere. You know what I'm saying? And Jennings, if y'all know what I'm talking about. I was waiting for a sandwich. We talking the crime prevention van, the white van with 5 big white cops, all of them bigger than me, hopped out and ran towards us. We didn't run. I'm like, okay. Like, why are you approaching us? They're like, get against the wall. I'm like, what? They're like, get against the wall now. We got against the wall. They searched us. And I'm like, what are you doing? And they're just like, just be quiet. You know what I'm saying? Someone got killed here a month ago, and now we're just in the, like, what's that got to do with me? Seriously, what's that got to do with me? And check this out. I'm just one person out of how many people in Frisco, they go through this mess. You know what I'm saying? Now, as an adult, I'm a case manager. I help the same youngsters, you know what I'm saying, that I grew up around. I don't care where you're from. Coming from Sunnyvale, Fillmore, not from you. Straight up. You know what I'm saying? And it upsets me that even so, I look how I look, I'm on the day chilling, and I get blurred, and they're gonna search me, they're gonna harass me, they're gonna humiliate me, and then they talk about you can go out and give you a pass. I'm like, that's not a pass. You just humiliated me in front of all my community. What if one of my kids see me? Like, oh, look at Jesus over there getting blurred by the police. Like, I'm not about that life. I'm about a different life. Uplifting and empowering our youth. You know what I'm saying? And when I help them with the resumes, programs, mark interview, help them get to school, I got a track record of successful job placements and a track record of successful graduations. I'm not just speaking. You know what I'm saying? And they get harassed. And I'm like, that's my kids. I don't know what you see, some punk colored kid with a hood. I don't care what you see. Those are my kids. And I'm not having it. You know what I'm saying? Speaking up here, to be honest, I'm worried, man. Because honestly, I've spoken in previous events. Police have stopped me and single-handedly pointed me out. Like, I know who you are. They know me by my name and everything. I'm just like, oh well. Because it's either risk myself or just let it happen. I'm not getting stepped on. You know what I'm saying? At SEP, they try to make it seem like it's just a NYPD, LAPD, and Ferguson. No, it's right here. It's been like that for years. Don't try to cover it up. Just gentrification. They did a RICO sweep on all the Mission people, and now that there's hardly anybody hanging out in the neighborhood, y'all see the differences? Any leftover Mexicans, any leftover blacks, the last 2%, we get harassed, even if we're not affiliated, just by being black and brown. So like I said, record, Black Power, Brown Pride, Justice for Alexander, Mario Wood.
I need to say that we have far exceeded our ability to be here. And we're going to continue to go, but I have to ask that you keep your comments to a minute or two. It's the only way everyone will have a chance to speak. So please, we have another meeting on Thursday. And if you're in line and your time got cut short, when you're done, come up to one of us, we'll take your name and we'll put you in the front of the line Thursday, but I do apologize for trying to give everyone as much time, but we're running out. So if we can keep it to a minute or two.
Thursday at Gatewood, Gary Street, Buchanan.
We are going to.
All right,
Be considerate and let others speak as well as you.
all right, this was aired 2 weeks before Mario Woods was executed. And this is part of the problem we have in San Francisco and all throughout the United States.
Keep talking. 2 minutes. We listen.
Technological difficulty.
The 1,000th American was executed by U.S. police forces. 1,000 this year already by American cops murdered.
Boy. And that's not against blacks or whites. That's just cruelty and inhumane behavior by policemen.
You got it.
I mean, black policemen, white policemen.
Well, that's why they don't want cops in the police force who have IQs over 105. They turn them down. This is true.
Maybe that's so. I didn't know that.
There's a limit. Many police forces will not allow anyone. Somebody sued back east, Pennsylvania, Virginia. He was rejected from the police because he scored too high on the IQ test.
Wow. That's unbelievable. Well, it's astonishing to me.
That's one of the problems that we have. These cops are as dumb as a box of rocks. They can't assess anything. They should have been able to assess Mario Wood immediately. Because all they had to do was take their belly club and just whack his hand. And the knife would drop. That's all they had to do. They didn't have to execute him. Same goes with Kenneth Harding. Kenneth Harding dashes and runs. And what does the officer do? He gets down on his knees and he aims his gun right at him and shoots him in the face. And then they turn around and watch him bleed to death at the curb. And then Chief Sir, right along with the mainstream media, goes off and covers it up and says that there was a gun. When there was no gun, it was a cell phone that fell on the damn ground. Complete total cover. And that was murder. And it goes on and on and on. I've watched a black and a white cop do good cop and bad cop. Do good cop and bad cop and go right up to a black person sitting there on the chair and turn around and violate their constitutional rights and go digging through their bags and their pockets to see if they've got something to arrest them for. And they do this over and over and over again. And I watched this on New Year's Eve down Market Street doing the same shit.
All the time.
Filling their goddamn paddy wagon with blacks. This is a fucked up city. It's a cesspool of shit. It's like a goddamn big white fucking toilet that's loaded with shit.
I feel it. I definitely feel it, but I want to be conscientious of other people's time. My name is Yossi, and I'm a community organizer for the last 10 years of my life, actively fighting against police brutality. Unfortunately, for the last 5 years, as I learned more and more about the racist injustices that occur in our law system. I'm studying to become a lawyer, actually, as we speak. So, I'm with the Mario Woods Coalition. Our demands echo similar grievances from communities across the country, from Chicago to New York to smaller towns like Ferguson and Bakersfield. People are rising and saying Black Lives Matter, Brown Lives Matter, and we will not take the racist injustice by the police and their oppressive unions. If you want a transparent investigation, I urge you to speak to those whistleblowers in the SFPD who have spoken up against the racist injustice of the department, like Sergeant Yolanda Williams. Have you all been in correspondence with her? Great, that's good to hear. She's been targeted by police in her union, telling the SF examiner about her fear for her life. There are plenty of more stories like that. I've heard and individually spoke to officers, and I will not name names. Yeah, there are. You don't nod at me. Don't nod at me. I'm speaking to you, and you don't need to react that way. Can you explain why you don't think so?
I want to hear. I would like to hear your opinion.
Well, actually, I was nodding because I was listening to you.
Oh, okay, I thought you were saying nodding no.
I thought you were saying no. My apologies. Anyways, I am a little heated right now. I can't help it. I'm kind of young still. Anyways, so just please, I urge you to look at this from the grassroots. There are many leaders in the room. Please be in correspondence with them. A lot of them have been living in the city a lot longer than I have. So you can get the true, authentic stories right here, right now. Please, thank you so much for your time.
Stay involved. Show up.
Good evening, my name is Starchild. I'm here with the Libertarian Party of San Francisco. And I'm speaking mostly to those attending here and to those who will later be watching and listening to this. Because I agree with the previous speakers, unfortunately, we can't trust the government, we can't trust the Department of Justice to do the right thing. Although there may be some individuals who work for the department who are sincere in wanting to help and address the problem, and I respect that if you are. But as an institution, the same Department of Justice, that oversees the FBI, they organize something called the Urban Area Security Initiative, now sponsoring events called Urban Shield. It used to be called Urban Warrior until they realized that was bad PR and changed the name. That sees, encourages local law enforcement to get training that sees the public as the enemy. And militarizes the police. They get militarized armored vehicles and other equipment from the Department of Justice and Department of Homeland Security. And we need to address changes at the local level. They've been using this excuse of Mario Woods, these other killings, to actually demand more weapons, to demand tasers. Do yourself a favor, check out some of the slow motion videos of people getting tased on the internet. It is a very violent thing of having metal slugs shooting at your body. People have been killed from tasers. Tasers are not a solution. And we have, as people have mentioned, Chief Sir, Greg Sir, sitting up there on the police commission. The body that's supposed to be regulating him in his department, he sits up in there. He goes into closed session with them when they meet in secret, where the public isn't allowed to be there. He's allowed to be there. And then they meet in this so-called meet and confer process with officers of the Police Officers Association in a process that is also secret and hidden from the public. San Francisco is over-policed. We need more local accountability from the police, and we need more things like badge numbers being printed on the backs of their jackets, and people going and sitting and serving on juries to hold them accountable. Check out FIJA.org, Fully Informed Jury Association. If you go and sit on a jury, you can have an opportunity to do justice and get some people free who shouldn't be in jail. And I go on, but they're limiting our time. I think that they need to
all right, thank you so much.
Take more time to hear from the people. I'll be here back on Thursday.
Really quickly, my name is Anthony Peebles. I worked at Thurgood Marshall High School in 2002. I was a teacher who was arrested with 11 my students at that time. I only came here today because I wanted to support the people who are in the audience and kind of talk a little bit, more people are gone, but just talk to people who are here about really talking to each other opposed to coming to meetings like this. When I was living in San Francisco in 2002, we went to meetings like 50 to 60 meetings. 14 years later, we're talking about someone who just got killed on the street and many other people got killed. I was arrested because I stepped in the way of the gun that they pointed at my high school students. I think these meetings are good because we are in a room together to beat each other and talk to each other. But if you think you're going to speak to the administrators, the people who have these jobs, and you're going to actually do anything, I don't think it's even possible for you to do anything, right? The system, to me, is in place to have brown people, bodies, caged and locked. That's the way we got into this country, most of us, and that's what's happened since we've been here. So we're sitting here coming to speak to pretty much, I think it was 3 white women and a white brother and this brother right here. Basically, I feel like you guys are sitting here, we are sitting here talking to people who cannot actually help us. But I hope the people are in the room meeting each other and actually talking to the young people who are on the street who face this violence every single day. We've allowed police in the schools. We've allowed them to be policed all the time. And that problem, to me, it cannot be solved by having these discussions. It actually has to happen by seriously taking what I think is a systematic problem in this country from the beginning and try to eradicate that type of prejudice. When we see people who look like us, I know all lives matter because there's blood in everybody's veins, but the conversation is about who is being killed on the streets, right? Like, I'm not afraid of any of you or any person, so I'm not fearful for my life in the streets. But the fact that people are just shooting bullets aimless, they're aiming at brown bodies and saying, well, what actually happened? Tell me what you think happened. If you killed somebody, that's what happened, right? And that is not okay, and that should not be accepted by any of us.
My name is Tony Barrios. I went to the first meeting over at Thurgood Marshall, and
I was very disappointed to see how few members of the community showed up at that meeting. I don't think it was well publicized. I'm not sure about this one, but I do know that this meeting was publicized in SF8, San Francisco Chronicle. I don't know what went beyond that. But again, I'm very disappointed. This theater holds 1.5 times or so more people than the other theater, and it's about the same number of people again. So that bothers me. We have a crisis of leadership. We have a problem. As I see it, we don't have justice. We have a justice system that doesn't deliver. We have, I spent well over an hour looking online at videos about Noble Gray's career, and I'm extremely satisfied that he's an outstanding civil servant with a fabulous career and a big heart and needs to do well. And I believe that everybody on the team with you here today is equal to that in terms of character. So I'm very happy with that. But I think that the problem we have has been very well explained by many other people already this evening, of all different, coming from all different perspectives, is that the city has continued its abuses, and the problems that have occurred here for decades have gotten away with it. There's just too much between, it's like we have gangs in the Chinese community, the Mexican community, the black community, the white community. There are all kinds of gangs in this city. You don't hear about it a whole lot because the police don't seem to be able to do a damn thing about it, except once in a while play basketball with some of the gangbangers. And they have programs to take the guns away, but they can't get enough of them. And it goes on. But then if you have gangs out in the community that are making their business is selling drugs and doing other illegal activities, and they're very, very profitable and very good at what
Sir, I'm going to need you to wrap up, please.
I am. And then we don't want the police to be another gang like that. So I'll finish with this real quick, because people don't always behave like saints, so we created police. Police are people too, actually first, last, and always. We ask them to do a job most of us don't want to do and couldn't do if we wanted to. Then we complain like hell about how they do it. It's our fault because we really want it both ways. When we make a mistake, we want a break. When someone we don't like makes a mistake, too many of us want them broken. When a cop makes a mistake, those who are blind backers rally behind, while those who are distrusting or haters grab the protest sign. Rioters gonna riot, haters gonna hate. Protesters need to think first before it's too late. Police have a duty, a job of honor and respect. When police are overwhelmed, they can't just say, what the heck? Freedom is the goal, but only safely so. There are many ways to do the job without a stranglehold. Breaking arms and bashing faces may be sometimes okay, but unless it's a matter of self-defense, it's generally not the way. They stand between us and our worst fears.
Sir,
when they die,
sir, I'm sorry.
their tears. Are they of us or are we others? Let's figure out that we're all brothers. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tatiana, and I just wanted to say my request for my community is definitely healing, because I feel like there's nothing you can do to change the fact that all these lives have been lost by the hands of police officers here, not only in San Francisco, but in California and across the nation. But I think there needs to be a huge investment in the mental health of people who are still here, who are still mourning the losses of all these people that are constantly happening. And I know that you guys don't have much power, and I appreciate you trying to stand here and advocate or say you're going to advocate, but I just feel like the truth of the matter is you stand behind the legislature. Like, you stand behind laws, and you're here to enforce laws that were made and created to reinforce racism. And so I feel like as long as you stand behind that, and that is your moral compass, that you can't really stand behind the citizens, especially the citizens of San Francisco. And I just really hope that there's an investment, really, truly, in therapy and in community building and in getting help for the people who are still here, and an investment in trying to get my people back into our cities, because we've been displaced. And violence does not begin to end when police officers shoot and kill black and brown people, but the moment they step outside with those blue suits on, because their presence alone is violence to people like me. And I mean, that's pretty much what I had to say. I want to be cognizant of people's time as well.
Sir?
Good evening, guys. I appreciate you staying late to hear everybody. My name is Daniel Meyer. I'm a lawyer for the Public Defender's Office. My name is Daniel Meyer. I'm a lawyer for the San Francisco Public Defender's Office. In that capacity, I see police lie on a daily basis and not get held accountable for it. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I also work for the crisis intervention team as one of the trainers to help the police try and implement de-escalation tactics to deal with mentally ill people. So I do see that the police department is trying to change, but so far unsuccessfully. And Mario Woods is a good example of that. I want to say, first of all, thank God for cell phone cameras, because without that, I probably wouldn't be here right now. But we shouldn't have to rely on that. There should be body cameras on officers. I want to disagree with a lot of the people here and say that I think you do have power. And I hope that you will use it to advocate and convey the messages of the people here in the community. I know you heard about the TextGate scandal. I don't know if you've heard about that before tonight. You had, so you know that there are police officers in the Mission District Station, feet from here, that have made incredibly inflammatory comments, like hanging people from trees. And those police officers are still on the force. And that just exemplifies a culture within the police department of racism, which leads to incidents like Mario's.
Thank you, Public Defender's Office.
Hi, my name is James Matson, M-A-T-T-S-O-N. Would you please have the Justice Department send me the rest of my FBI files that you say you don't have to release? No more lying on police reports. Happy International Women's Day.
Yes.
It said on KPOO that in America, not necessarily San Francisco, that 40% of all women who call, or people who call for domestic violence, the police come, 40% chance he's a domestic abuser. You should get out of state. Don't use your cell phone. And also, don't use your computer because he's spying on you. The Black Panther Party was getting the so-called gangs to do community work like they were doing. So what do the FBI come in and do with the local police? Start up the gang violence again. We wouldn't need the police if we didn't have all these so-called gang violence that they want. Fire all the police. But take care of their families. Take care of all families so they don't have to suffer. Berkeley had community control of police on the ballot in about 1972. It would take the entire police budget and give it to each neighborhood. And each neighborhood could decide how they want to protect themselves. I think we should, if we are having these police, I think we should pay them 100% of their salary if we're 100% safe. So in Santa Cruz we have health meetings at the Sub Rosa on Pacific and Spruce at the anarchist hippie place called Sub Rosa every Wednesday. From 11 to 2 you can come. It's fighting police brutality and draconian anti-homeless laws in Santa Cruz.
Thank you.
All right. Where I stayed, I had habitability issues, and there were people in the building creating those habitability issues problems. And over the 2 years that I stayed at the residence, I called the police department pretty much at least once a month. And the police never did anything about it. They would come, probably knock on his door. That's about it. They never ticketed him when I asked. And it lasted 2 years while I was there. And in addition, I was liable tax. And when I showed the video to Police Chief Greg Sher, he just said that they're not supposed to arrest people who violently attack others. I mean, because I was not physically injured. half ago, I was violently attacked again. And I asked for a citizen's arrest form, and I asked for this person to be arrested. The police officer gave me a citizen's arrest form. He did not arrest this person as requested, but in the police report, he flips it around like I was the perpetrator, even though in the police report, he documents that the person who violently attacked me actually violently attacked me. So I'm asking for somebody who violently attacked me to be arrested, which they admitted to, and the police department refused to do that.
All the time.
And this is just San Francisco Police Department as normal. Blacks are a victim of a crime, and they flip it somehow where they're the perpetrator. And I'm also going to ask for you to read the transcripts from the court documents of the Alex Anto case and just stack it almost whatever complaints that you hopefully can get and do something similar for the Mario Woods case. But with the Alex Anto case, what the things that are coming out?
I get you to wrap up this.
Okay, yeah. What happened in the court case? The police officer actually admitted after shooting Alex Anto, he went to his trunk to grab something. So honestly, I don't know what he was grabbing. I mean, maybe he was grabbing a taser. I don't know. But then, in addition to it, it was his training. The officers made it clear that they admitted that they did not follow their training. And it's in the transcripts, and I hope you can look into it.
Just so you know the police brutality.
Sir, you have the last word.
I figured that. All right. So my name is Perry Jones. I'm a third-generational resident here in San Francisco. I'm a student in criminal justice, and I'm also an executive body member of the Justice for Mario Woods Coalition here. First of all, with all due respect, I want to give y'all the benefit of the doubt. Most of my group left, but I wanted to stay here because I did come here to stand up, not just to hold the flyer, but I also did want to give some solutions to a big problem. I'm pretty sure, like I said, I want to give y'all the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I will hope that this is an unbiased situation, and I know that all of our time unit is very much valuable. So I sincerely, I really appreciate y'all being here, but I just want to touch bases on one thing that you even touched, and I know what you were trying to get at, of addressing the what about the crime. What about the crime? There's a lot of issues that's going on when it comes to crime, but there are some positive things that's going on within the police department too. You can't just say that all police officers are bad. I come from the 1980s when the police used to play football with the same criminals they went to school with. I mean, we all played cops and robbers before too though, and I'm not sure how far y'all went into the criminal aspect, which none of us should have to go through, but there is solutions and there is problems to what's going on in our community, and I'm just hoping that y'all do come here with the best intentions, with good intentions. I'm not here to badger y'all. We can do that all day. I don't want to do that, but from where I stand at, my standpoint as a local, I'm in the union as well too. I work hard. I'm demanding my justice. I mean, this ain't got nothing to do with a black thing, a white thing. You feel me? Like, I believe that the more that y'all know, the more that y'all owe to me as a young man in order to see that I make it to being successful, in order for me to be able to make it to have my suit and tie on. Because I'm in school, and I do want to make a difference in the community, but I got to make it. And I don't think that y'all really realize what we go through on a day-to-day. Not only do we deal with post-traumatic stress that a soldier would deal with, we deal with post-traumatic stress, and also our officers. We gotta protect our officers as well too though. They come here to protect and serve, and we're dealing with gang members and everything that they deal with, but we don't want our officers to be conditioned as being just as guilty as gang members, and that's the way that it's looking right now. So I'm hoping that y'all do come and focus on the solutions and also changing the culture, not just within the community, but also within the police department. Until then, we're gonna stay standing as a community, not just for justice for Mario Woods, but for justice for humanity. And right now, the humanity is being violated at the hands of those supposed to be serving us. So I hope that y'all do be diligent with what y'all doing.
Thank you for ending on a strong, positive message. We appreciate it.
Nation.
For everybody who stayed to the end, thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. We'll have another meeting on Thursday, and our community interaction will continue. Thank you very much.